So I've got a new painting that I'm going to start working on here. There's a couple of things I want to do to prepare it. Before I tape it down, I'm going to apply some liquid mask to it, and I use this Schmincke Rubbelkrepp, and this is a great tool for masking out areas on the paper that you want to keep white. So in this image, which is a vintage camera, it's a Canon film camera, SLR camera from the 1980s. There are a few shiny areas, like along the barrel of the lens and a line over here on the body. A couple of different spots. I'm looking at a photograph and I've marked out ahead of time where some of those bright areas should be. I want the white of the paper to really come through and show bright reflections. I'm going to get an old brush that I don't mind kind of messing up. This liquid mask, you have to be kind of careful with it. You have to either make sure to rinse it off right away after you use it, otherwise it'll gum up your brush and make it hard to use in the future. One thing we can do ahead of time is just make sure that you wet the brush first. So I'm dipping it into my water, and this way it's less likely to stick to the hairs. There's a couple of spots on here I want to capture and block out. I'm going to mask out here. And again, I've outlined these ahead of time, so it's easy for me to spot them again. And it's really just going to take an hour or so for this to dry. And once they're dry, then I can begin the actual painting process. Depending on the actual area you want to mask, it's helpful to actually mask a little bit more than you think you need. Once you rub off the mask, you can always cover up or paint over areas that you need to. So there are a number of, obviously on this camera, which is a metallic body, there's a lot of areas that could potentially have some shine on it. I'm going to be a little bit picky with making those highlights because I actually want to cover most of the paper up with a very light green background, including the body of the camera. So there's going to be a very light tint to the camera itself, and I think that's going to help with making the camera really feel like it's part of the painting and not just a separate part. One of the things that happens with the masking is you're leaving some of the paper completely white. Depending on how you treat it afterwards, it may not have the desired effect. It may look like the object that you're painting in later is just completely not within the same atmosphere, the same context or environment as the rest of the painting. So sometimes I will actually default to covering an entire surface with a light shade of a particular color, and then once that dries, I'll go in and actually start painting the object. Even though the object itself, your mind is telling you that this camera, which is actually a black body, it shouldn't have green on it. But really, you know, when you have an object sitting in front of you, it takes on some of the light characteristics around you. So it looks more natural if the light around you, even though it may not be purely visible on the object itself, gets onto the object in some way. You know, sometimes you might see that bottom here, there's a reflection here that the surface that the camera is sitting on, there's going to be some light reflecting onto it. And one approach is to actually block that out with a mask and have a pure white. But actually, it makes more sense if whatever color the table is the color that ends up being reflected off the surface, not a pure white. So in this situation, there's different levels of shine, and I'm just masking out what would be the highest degree of shine, or what we would call white, the brightest part. And then below that, there are several degrees of shininess, which essentially will reflect some of the ambient light that we're going to see in the rest of the painting. All that is to say that I'm not going to be masking out much more on this body because I'm going to let the wash that I'm going to do on the entire paper take care of any other potential highlights that we'll see on this body. So that's basically it. I don't really see any other, actually I see one more spot. I'm gonna just cover that area right here. Actually, I will do this whole thing because it's easier It's easier to just block out a whole circular area and then fix it later with paint. So that's using Schmincke liquid mask, which is called Rubbelkrepp, and we're gonna let this dry and I'll come back and finish preparing the paper and then start painting.